Eunice Njovana, a distinguished activist and expert in gender equality and women's human rights, has an impressive 30-year track record working across local, national, regional, continental, and international contexts. Her extensive portfolio includes working with national governments, the United Nations, multilateral and bilateral organizations, as well as national and international NGOs and local community groups. Eunice's tenure as the outgoing chairperson of the Anti-Domestic Violence Council of Zimbabwe underscores her superior expertise and commitment to combating gender-based violence. One of her distinguished contributions to the Zimbabwe civil service was serving on a commission set up to support the professionalization of the civil service post-independence. As a social development consultant, she has undertaken critical assignments including policy analysis and development, technical reporting, and advocacy for gender equality, for example, the Beijing Platform for Action, CEDAW, and the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, among many other key policy instruments. Notably, Eunice's groundbreaking work in addressing violence against women culminated in an impactful television series, Women Madzimai, about the scourge of gender-based violence in Zimbabwe. She also led the setting up of the first ever shelter for women suffering gender-based violence and their children in Zimbabwe. As demonstration of her desire to see women empowered beyond the borders of her own country, she has mentored organizations in the SADC region and on the African continent as a whole to set up organizations and initiatives to end gender-based violence. Eunice has sat on boards of over 9 organizations, participating in the vision setting, policy formulation, and providing strategic leadership. Now, let us hear her lay out priority areas for her campaign.
My name is Eunice Njovana. I'm Zimbabwe's candidate for the Committee on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women. And I would like to share with you my priority issues. We are to be elected onto this committee, working collaboratively, synergistically with other treaty bodies. The 9 other treaty bodies is a strong imperative. It will take us faster towards gender equality and advancing women's human rights. And so that said, what do I think poses the greatest threat to women's human rights? I think that at the top of that list is climate change, especially in developing economies. Studies show that where there are humanitarian crises, women are most at risk, at least 14 times more than men. And so there is a need for us as a committee to look into supporting countries and thinking strategically with them on how women can play a greater and a bigger role in mitigating the effect of climate change. I move on to another very critical issue in my view, which is women's meaningful and effective political participation. Globally, there has been a lot of work around women's meaningful and effective political participation, but I don't think we have moved as much as we should have. And women's leadership and political participation is critical to responding to other drivers and sustainers of discrimination against women. And I would like to see the committee engage state parties around how we can get an increased number of women as heads of state, how we can increase numbers of women in strategic positions, taking on defense. And I need to pause and celebrate my own country that we have our first female minister of defense in the country. And I look forward to many other equally strategic appointments for women in ministries of finance, foreign affairs, trade and commerce, so that they bring their leadership in those spaces. The other priority issue for me, economic empowerment. I was looking at the Forbes top 20 richest persons in the world. I counted 1 or 2 women, and that is not good enough. We need a new paradigm of supporting meaningful participation of women and not keeping women poor in the name of economic empowerment, but meaningful economic empowerment that will provide them with choices, even in the face of evils like gender-based violence, where women then have choices on how to respond to the challenges that they face. And I believe that the CEDAW Committee can play a part in just triggering thinking in certain ways in the minds of state parties so that we really move in the direction of transformative economic empowerment for women.
What an amazing vision that is. We hope that Eunice's vast experience and expertise in the field of gender equality and championing women's human rights merit your consideration for candidature to CEDAW. Please show her your support on June 7.